Welcome back to another special transfer episode of Peeping Ballers. I'm your host, Albert, joined by Michael Welch, our senior editor at Fighting Stripes. It's been a while, Mike. Today, we're going to talk about pretty big news in the MLS. Korean goalkeeper Kim Joon-hong of Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors has been confirmed to transfer DC United. That's right, a Korean goalie is coming to the nation's capital. Pretty big news. I mean, when we all saw this, I think this news had been rumored in some sources, including the Washington Post, for a bit since December, but we're finally kind of seeing it come to fruition. It was a bit surreal actually watching DC United tweet in Korean, welcoming Junong to the nation's capital. For those who don't know, he is a 21-year-old goalkeeper, about 190 centimeters, about 6'2", 6'3", really, really well built. Not a typical like a slender Asian keeper. All the stereotypes we have of Asian players. Homie's huge. He's been in the Jeonbuk system for a while. Actually, also one thing about him is he finished his military service already with Kim Sangmu, so DC United won't have to worry about him leaving anytime soon. Michael, when you saw the news, what were your initial thoughts about a Korean goalkeeper coming to America?
I mean, this is historic. We've never had a Korean goalkeeper plying their trade at the club level outside of Asia. We've had a lot of Korean goalkeepers test themselves in Japan. They found themselves good homes in the J1 league. That's usually worked out. A couple have played in the Middle East, whether it's Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, something like that, but never in Europe or outside of Asia. I just think this is a good thing for him. He's a very young goalkeeper. He's got a lot of potential, and he's going to get to learn from goalkeeping coaches that are not Korean. That's just something different. I think a lot of the reason probably why Korean goalkeepers never went abroad is because probably the methods that they're getting coached on don't really fit up with what's being coached in the rest of the world. That has to be part of it, right?
Unlike any position, I think the goalkeeping position is one where you really should speak the language of the country you're at, because you're taking advice from one-on-one with the goalkeeping coach. It's not like the regular coaches can really give you advice tailored to your position. So in this case, not only does the Korean goalkeeper need to be used to other training methods, but he has to also be comfortable taking the instructions in a language that isn't Korean, right? And for all the advancements Korea has made, still a lot of these younger Korean players just don't speak English well because it's not a huge requirement when they're growing up. And I think it's really brave of Kim Joon-hong to sign for a club in North America, considering the fact probably doesn't speak English very well. He's probably never really lived outside of Korea. But to come at this age, like when he's 21, when he's still relatively young, it's the perfect time for him to come, because if you want to get adapted to a new culture, learn a new language, your early 20s is probably the best time to do it. And I think that I'm not sure if he's going to play a lot necessarily in the beginning, because there's going to be some competition, and I don't think they're going to give him the job right away, especially considering that he's coming from the K League, and the K League isn't that well respected, to be honest, outside of Korea. So we'll see. But like you said, it's a good development in the sense that, yeah, like another club outside of Korea has kind of witnessed his potential in terms of physical traits. The best up and coming young Korean keeper. I could be wrong, Mike, but I think of all the young keepers that we have, there's a lot of good ones, but he's probably the one with the body type that makes you think, wow, like that looks like a intimidating number one.
Yeah, I think like his calves are huge. He's got really good legs in terms of like all the jumping needed. He's been a starter for the past 2 years in club level. So in 2023, he helped Kim Sangmu win the title, get promoted. He started the season as their starter there. His loan for military duty was done halfway through the year this past summer in 2024. And then he went straight back to Jeonbuk and took Kim Jong-hoon's job. And Kim Jong-hoon was also a very highly regarded young goalkeeper. So the dude's got some potential that people are thinking about. They watched him at the U20 World Cup. They liked what they saw. I think they could work with him. DC United revamped their entire goalkeeping personnel this offseason. Got rid of 2024's goalkeepers. So Cody Mizell, their goalkeeping coach, he's going to have a new slate of goalkeepers to work with and see what he gets from him. I think Kim Joon-hong has a good chance to start. I think they wouldn't probably spend a transfer fee on the guy that they didn't want to give significant minutes to at some point during the season. But, they'll sign up a new interpreter for him, get him acclimated, and then see when he's really ready to take on starting minutes.
Yeah, the contract that he signed with DC United, I believe, is a 3-year deal running through 2027 with an option for 2028. There was a press release from DC United's general manager, Ali McKay, who basically said, he's a very talented young keeper, has demonstrated his ability this past season in the K-League, and his profile fits what we're looking for in terms of our system. Excited to have him in the club and bolster our roster ahead of the season. I think that from what I'm reading, Kim is pretty much only the 7th ever South Korean player to play in the MLS since it was founded back in 1996. Right now, he's only one of 2 active Korean nationals in the MLS alongside Chung Sang-bin, who probably is going to be moving soon out of Minnesota United to Ulsan Hyundai. So once Chung moves, I think Kim is going to be the only Korean player playing in the MLS. So that's going to be very interesting as well. But he definitely is the first goalie to ever come through the MLS. Now, I think in terms of maybe some of his strengths and weaknesses, Mike, you mentioned his calves, just how physically intimidating he is. Yeah, he really is just a big guy. And what I've noticed in some of his videos is that he's still a little physically raw. He does have all the potential of being an elite number 1, but I noticed that maybe a little bit in terms of his explosiveness. Sometimes his positioning could use a little work, but he's also really young at the same time. And from what I've seen is I don't think he's that amazing with the ball at his feet yet. He's not really a sweeper keeper, we can say. He's more of a traditional guy who stays in the net, but maybe that could be something that DC United's goalkeeping coach works on him with.
I mean, no Korean goalkeeper really is good with their feet, and I think that's got to be down to training. Probably just more drills on saves, more drills on positioning or whatever the Korean goalkeeping coaches are working on with them. So that's something he's going to work on. But I mean, it's very interesting that he's decided to make this move at this young age. Also, he decided very young to complete his military duty, which was very interesting because it seems like the military duty thing was one reason why goalkeepers didn't really gain any traction when they had interest. Song Bum-kun, really good at the 2017 U20 Asian Cup or U20 World Cup. So he was in college at the time. He had his pick of where he could sign his first pro deal. And there were thoughts that maybe he would, try to sign with a European club as his first pro deal. But instead, he just decided to go with Jeonbuk Hyundai. He didn't have military duty done at that point in his career. It was the same thing with Jo Hyun-woo. He had a great 2018 World Cup. People were talking about him maybe moving from Daegu to a European team, but he also had not completed his military duty either. So that seems like somewhat of an interesting thing. Like, no outside of Asian club was interested in taking a gamble on a Korean goalkeeper that hadn't done military duty and had like the free reign of, their entire career ahead of them. Yeah, I think it's got to be said.
Yeah, it is a problem because, like you said, the clubs need to know whether or not they're going to lose a player potentially for a season or 2. And with Choi Hyun-woo, eventually, he did get his military exemption at, I believe, the 2018 Asian Games, but by then I think it was already too late for him to move to a bigger club. And this is, again, which was why I'm always harping on these young Korean players. If you ever want to move to Europe eventually, going to Japan or China, it could work, but it's better for you to try to go to maybe even a lower level European league or a lower level North American league earlier instead of just staying in Asia, because at the end of the day, Japan and China are still a lot too similar to Korea in terms of the culture and just the play style and the coaching you'll get there. You really have to expand outside of Asia if you want more eyes on you, especially if you want Asian goalkeepers to play in Europe. I mean, we have an explosion of Asian midfielders, wingers, strikers, center backs playing in Europe. We see it all the time now, but we don't see any Asian goalkeepers. The only young Asian keeper that I can really think of in Europe right now that's doing well is Zion Suzuki, who's obviously Japan's starting goalkeeper. MLS is in Europe, but I still think this is a positive move for Kim. And obviously, if he does succeed in DC, then I think it's going to bode well for his future chances in Europe, because not to harp on the cultural thing, but if he does learn English well this time, then his transition to whatever European club he eventually moves to will go a lot smoother. Mike, I want to transition to a little bit to maybe what this means for the Korean national team. For those who don't know, Kim Joon-hong has been called up to the senior national team before. Hasn't appeared in any official matches, but he's been on the bench a few times. I think that it's Choi Won-woo's job for 2026 and probably 2027. But after that, we're going to be looking at somebody new potentially. I mean, right now, Mike, would you say Kim Joon-hong is your pick to kind of take over for Choi Won-woo after he retires, or what are you thinking there?
I mean, I'd have to see how he does with DC United. I think I'll, watch a lot more of their matches this season. Apple TV Plus is very available to me. But overall, I think he probably represents, the best educated goalkeeper of the future, right? Because Song Bum-kun is in his mid-20s. He's just come back to Jeonbuk Hyundai, so he's going to continue to be working with and learning from Korean goalkeeping coaches. Lee Kwan-yeon, also in his mid-20s, still at Gangwon FC, so still going to be learning from Korean goalkeeping coaches. He's just going to have a different experience. So if he plays well, finds good form within this year, I do think that it's possible that he could come into the rotation for getting called up. It'll be really interesting to see what Hong Myung-bo does. He still is in that stage of like very much sticking with pretty similar goalkeepers. So we'll have to see how that goes. Jo Hyun-woo, Gwangju's goalkeeper, Pohang's goalkeeper recently, Song Bum-gun's been picked recently. Like Kim Joon-hong has never been called up by Hong Myung-bo, so that's a little bit of a problem. We'll have to keep a look on that.
Yeah, Kim Jong only was called up, ironically, by Jurgen Klinsmann for the two friendly matches against Wales and Saudi Arabia back in 2023. Shout out Jurgen for that one. I mean, Hong Myung-bo hasn't done it yet, so I think for all of Hong Myung-bo's faults, he's probably going to start with Choi Won-woo, which I'm fine with for now. But I think that if Kim, like you said, does ball out in DC United, it's going to be tough to not call him up, especially considering the other competition he has. I mean, we have some young goalkeepers that have potential, but you never really see them putting on like a consistent string of performances that makes you think, oh, well, he can absolutely take the number one job someday. And this is why, again, it's a big opportunity for him at DC United at a higher profile league to play well and eventually be maybe the future number one for the Korean national team. That's the end of this video, though. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll cover more transfer news in the January window as it comes along. But for now, see you in the next one.